and welcome to AGK's Vinyl Life. I'm your host, Anthony K. And on this week's episode, I've just got a few things to show you this week. Just some miscellaneous things to show you this week. Mainly because I haven't had the time this week to film what I would call a proper AGK episode. I have some things in my head that I want to film and want to discuss in future episodes. But I've been just so bogged down with work this week that I really haven't had the time to devote to filming one of my more in-depth videos. But I will be trying to find some time in the next week to film one of those videos. This week's just been crazy for me. I'm working both my jobs now. With the pandemic, cooling down, I've gone back to doing more photography. As people know, I'm a fashion and boudoir and nude photographer. And most of that was put on the back burner because of the pandemic. But as things are settling down, I'm getting a lot of calls from a lot of models saying, Anthony, we want to work with you again. Please shoot me, please shoot me. So I have, my schedule has kind of really expanded on photo shoots. And yesterday I did a big photo shoot, and this morning I did a small photo shoot, as well as I Uber for a living as well. And so, I mean, that's something I've been doing that been putting more hours into now since the pandemic has been cooling down. I've been doing more hours of Ubering. And so there just hasn't been the time to film an episode like I normally film. I like my episodes always to run a good half hour or so. But this one, maybe we'll see how this one goes. I don't think it'll be very long because I've only got about a dozen albums to show you here. And they're basically thank yous. This video is basically a thank you for Patrick, the vinyl archivist, who put on the second auction a few weeks ago. And I attended that record auction and picked up a few things from Patrick, as well as Mark Kopernicki, better known as being the multi-instrumentalist mastermind behind the progressive metal act Projekt Gemineye. And I picked up a few things from him as well at the record auction. So I'm going to be showing you what I got at the record auction. I do have one Discogs purchase I'm going to be showing you as well. And something from Projekt Gemineye to show you. So just some bits and pieces to show you on this week's episode. And I hope to get back to some longer episodes over the next few weeks when I have, hopefully, I'll try to, time manage a little bit better so that I can film some better content for you guys. But I do have some things in my head planned. Of course, Record Store Day is coming up, so there'll be a Record Store Day video. But let's get on with it. Let's not waste any more time. And so the record auction, like I said, I picked up 8 records from Mark Kopernicki, 2 from Patrick, the vinyl archivist. And the first one I picked up, and I jumped on this one because I actually don't have a copy of this album on vinyl. I did have one a couple of years ago that I sold because I wasn't happy. It was actually a modern pressing of it, but it was just a really crap pressing. And it was one of those typical ones that we hear about with scuff marks all over it. And the paper sleeve, it was just a really bad pressing. I ended up sending it back and getting my money back. And I haven't seen a copy of this around lately. And I jumped on this one at the record auction because it's got the original cover, and we're talking Some Girls, Rolling Stones' Some Girls. I picked this one at the record auction from Patrick. And I'm really happy to get this one because it's got the original cover. As people know, the Some Girls cover, they had to change because the celebrities that were featured on this cover did not like being on this cover. So the cover was actually changed to different faces, more random faces on this cover. But this original cover has a lot of famous people on here. We've got Marilyn Monroe, we've got Lucille Ball, we've got Britt Eklund. I think that's Jane Mansfield, if I'm not mistaken. A number of famous people that were originally on. I think I see Liza Minnelli here. Who else do I see here? That's Marilyn again. I think that's Tim Curry there. I'm not sure who that one is. But yeah, famous record cover. Happy to pick this up at the auction. I believe this is a Monarch pressing. Sounds really, really good. Patrick always sends out really, really great vinyl. So really happy to get an original OG copy of Rolling Stones' Some Girls with the original record cover. That was my big purchase at the record auction because that was a little bit pricey, but really happy to have that one. The next record I picked up at the auction from Patrick is this one here. And did I need this one? Not really, because I have pretty much every song that's on this album. But the cover of this album is famous. I'm a big Thin Lizzy fan, as people know from watching my channel. Thin Lizzy are in my top 10 bands of all time. I'm a completist for Thin Lizzy, and I used to have this one album back in the day. Don't know whatever happened to it. Probably traded it in way back in the 90s when we were all idiots trading in our vinyl. But this is Remembering Part 1. It's a UK press by Thin Lizzy. It's a little bit floppy here because I've taken the record out. It's on Decca Records, as you can see. It's a UK pressing of Remembering Part 1 by Thin Lizzy, and there was never a Part 2. It was basically a compilation of early Thin Lizzy recordings. I mean, I have most of the stuff in various forms. I think there might be one or two things on here that I actually don't have on vinyl. I think this version of Whiskey in the Jar, I don't actually have on vinyl. But a great comp. It's got some classics on here. The Rocker, Whiskey in the Jar, Gonna Creep Up on You, Little Darling was a classic. Sitamoia. It's really a great little comp, but like I said, the main reason I jumped on this one at the record auction is it has this wonderful cover by Jim Fitzpatrick, who did the covers for a number of Thin Lizzy albums, and this was the only place you could get this Jim Fitzpatrick cover. Of course, Jim Fitzpatrick did the classic Nightlife album. He did the Jailbreak album. He did the Chinatown album, the Black Rose album. He did a number of Thin Lizzy album covers. And this picture right here is worth the price alone, just to have this fabulous Jim Fitzpatrick cover. Thin Lizzy Remembering Part 1, UK press. The third thing I got from Patrick the Vinyl Archivist, I jumped on at the auction because I'm a big comp fan. I like compilation albums, those sampler albums, you know, like not so much the K-Tel 22 Explosive Hits sort of albums, but I do like comp albums because comp albums are a great way to get a collection of songs that if you don't really, you don't know what you want to put on, throw on a comp album of various artists. They're always great. And there's a lot of comps out there that I have that have songs that I really probably I would only want that one song from that artist. So comps are kind of a great way. I'm a sucker for compilation albums, really obscure compilation albums. I love the best. That's why I love the Brown Acid series, for example. Things that you just don't find anywhere else on albums or singles. Whenever I see a comp of really obscure music, I gotta jump on it. And Patrick showed this one, and this one's called Texas Punk Groups from the 60s. I haven't had a chance to spin it yet, but I am excited to spin it. Texas Punk Groups from the 60s. I'm really interested, and this is the sort of comps that I really love. This is not something you'll see every day, that is for sure. I'm sure this is pretty rare. Texas Punk Groups from the 60s, and it's on the Eva record label. The Eva record label. So that's something interesting there. I haven't had a chance to spin any of these particular albums yet. I am really backlogged with my record album spinning because of work and everything, but I'll eventually get through all this stuff. And the third thing I got from Patrick the Vinyl Archivist is a copy of ZZ Top's Fandango, which I did not have on vinyl. This is, of course, a U.S. pressing, probably a pretty early pressing of ZZ Top and Fandango, which of course, spawned the classic, probably their first big radio hit being Tush, as well as Blue Jean Blues, which was actually the flip side of Tush. I don't have this on vinyl. I never see this one here in Toronto in the used records bins. ZZ Top doesn't hang around long in record stores here. So happy to have a copy of Fandango. And I think I only paid like $5 or $6 for this anyhow. So really happy to have this Fandango. And those are the records I picked up from Patrick, the Vinyl Archivist. The next record I've got here is one I picked up on Discogs. And of course, people know that it's been all about Alice Cooper for Anthony the last few weeks. As Alice Cooper is one of my top 2 artists of all time. And of course, I was super hyped for the Alice Cooper concert from 2 weeks ago. And 3 weeks ago, I made a video on the Alice Cooper catalog, and I ranked all of the albums during that video. I gave my own personal ranking and rating for each album. And I have all of the Alice Cooper albums in all the studio albums on vinyl. I had 27 actually of the 28 studio albums on vinyl, but I was missing one just because you don't see it too often, and it wasn't high on my list to get because I do have the album on CD. But in that video, I'd said, well, the only one I'm missing is Zipper Catches Skin. And so, after I filmed that video, I said, Anthony, you really should get yourself that darn album and complete your Alice Cooper studio albums on vinyl. So I went on Discogs and found one for like $10 with free shipping. A Canadian first press, Alice Cooper, Zipper Catches Skin. Not much to see. It's on the Warner label. This album was from 1982, I believe it was. 1982, yes, 1982. And it was the only one missing from my Alice Cooper collection, so I decided to fill in that hole finally. Zipper Catches Skin. It's not that great of an album. It really isn't. I think I rated this a 4 out of 10. It's my least favorite album in the Alice Cooper library. But there are a couple of really good songs on here. Zorro's Ascent and Tag You're It. There's a few good songs on here, but not one of Alice's better works. And of course, today I'm sporting my Alice Cooper hat and shirt from the Alice Cooper Detroit Muscle Tour from just 2 weeks ago. That blew my mind. And of course, my last video, you can check it out, is my vlog from that show. So sporting the Alice Cooper merch today, and Zipper Catches Skin, completing my Alice Cooper library on vinyl. And next up are the items I picked up from Mark Kopernicki, multi-instrumentalist of the musical act Projekt Gemineye. And I picked up 8 things from, because Mark actually only lives 15 minutes from me, and he and I are good friends, and I certainly wanted to support him in the auction. And so, the prices were right and no shipping required, so I really couldn't argue with buying some things from Mark. And Mark has some great stuff. And the first thing I picked up, I'm not a big Jeff Beck fan. I do love Jeff Beck's Truth album a lot, and I do like this one, and I don't have it in my collection. And Mark had a really sweet pressing of it. Beckola, a classic from Jeff Beck, early Jeff Beck, Beckola. And I think the big songs on here were All Shook Up, Jailhouse Rock is on here, The Hangman's Knee, I remember that one, Rice Pudding, and it's on Epic Records. Beckola, the Jeff Beck group, Beckola. That was the first thing I picked up from Mark. The next thing I picked up from Mark was actually another one to fill a hole in my collection, and you'll be surprised that, you'll probably be surprised that I never had this on vinyl in my collection. I do have most of this album on a Japanese import called The Story of Genesis, which featured over half of this album was on the Story of Genesis Japanese compilation album by Genesis. And I do have this album on CD, but it's one of only 2 albums I actually don't have on vinyl right now, even though I'm a big Genesis fan and Genesis completist. I've just, every time I see this album around, it's in really crappy shape. And so Mark had a really cool pressing of Foxtrot by Genesis, a really cool pressing of Foxtrot, so I couldn't argue, had to pick it up. Foxtrot by Genesis. It's on the Buddha Records label, so that's why I grabbed it. So finally putting Foxtrot in vinyl back in my collection. So my collection of Genesis is complete, except for one album on vinyl now, and that is Nursery Crime. Not in a big rush to get it, but I will find it somewhere someday and pick it up, just like I did that Zipper Catches Skin. So Genesis, Foxtrot. The next album I picked up from Mark Kopernicki, I didn't really need, but I'm a sucker for rare stuff. I'm a big Steve Miller fan. Absolutely, I love Steve Miller. I love Steve Miller's late 60s and 70s material. Really love Steve Miller. And an underappreciated album by Steve Miller is Steve Miller's Circle of Love. I absolutely adore this album. This album came out after Book of Dreams. Of course, Book of Dreams was his smash album, and this album came out after Book of Dreams. The band had gone through some major lineup changes right after the Book of Dreams tour, and so this was with a newer lineup. A lot of his original lineup was gone, and this album didn't do very well. I didn't have any big singles on it other than Heart Like a Wheel, whereas of course Book of Dreams had like 5 singles. This only had like 1 single. All of side 2 was a song called Macho City. But I love this album. I absolutely adore this album. And this is my original OG that I got when I was a teenager of this album. So it's seen its days. It still sounds pretty darn good. You know, it still sounds good. You know, I always took very good care of my albums. It still sounds good. But when Mark showed this at the auction, I had to jump on it. And it is a test pressing of Steve Miller's Circle of Love. That's right, a test pressing. So this is going to be about as best sounding a pressing as you're going to get of that album. So to have a 70s test pressing anyhow is sweet. You don't see, you know, test pressings from the 70s very often. So a test pressing of Circle of Love. I haven't had a chance to play this yet, but I'm sure it's going to sound sweet. As Mark has said, it is a great sounding album. And Mark just dropped these off to me last weekend. And the auction was like, 3 weeks ago, but Mark just came by this past Sunday to drop off the albums because Mark's been very busy in his life too, just like I have. So he didn't get around to getting me these albums. So I haven't had a chance to spin any of these yet, but I will do so in due course. Circle of Love test pressing, sweet. This is another album I didn't really need, but you know, to support Mark, and it will be an upgrade to the one I have. It's Styx Pieces of 8. I actually have my original OG pressing of this album, and it's on gold vinyl. When this album first came out here in Canada, it came out a limited edition on gold vinyl, and then of course, you know, your regular black vinyl pressing. My gold vinyl pressing, I have my OG. It wasn't a great pressing, and it certainly hasn't stood up over the years. It's got a fair amount of clicks and pops in it now, but you know, I keep it because it's a very rare gold gold vinyl pressing of Pieces of 8. So when Mark showed this, it was like I knew this was going to be in sweet condition. And Pieces of 8 on the A&M label by Styx. I love this album. This could be my favorite Styx album, actually. This could very well be my favorite Styx album. So this I basically got as an upgrade for my existing copy of Styx Pieces of 8, with of course the big singles on here were, I believe, let's see, Blue Collar Man was a big single, Queen of Spades was a big single on here, Pieces of 8. And then another Styx album I picked up from Mark Kopernicki is one that was, you know, I needed to fill a hole in my collection. I don't have this one in my collection right now. I used to back in the day. And it is Styx Cornerstone. That's right, Styx Cornerstone, which came out after Pieces of 8. So happy to fill that hole in my collection with this. And what's special about this particular pressing is it's actually a Mexican pressing. So very cool. A Mexican pressing. I don't think I have any other Mexican pressings of any albums. So this is kind of cool to get a Mexican pressing of Pieces of 8. And Mark says this sounds really sweet as well. So that's kind of cool. And the next two I got from Mark are samplers, comps, whatever you want to call them. Like I say, I'm a sucker for comps of obscure music. And there's two here. The first one I got from Mark was Windham Hill Record Sampler 1982. Windham Hill was a company that produced all sorts of these samplers back in the day. And I'm a sucker for these samplers. So Windham Hill Sampler from 1982 with all sorts of interesting artists on here that you won't find anywhere else. And of course, the big one, Shadowfax, is on here, among other things. So excited to hear this. Windham Hill's various artists sampler. And look at these wonderful Windham Hill inner liners. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at that gorgeous Windham Hill inner liner. This is going to sound sweet. Excited to have that. And a second Windham Hill sampler I also got from Mark. This one's called Winter's Solstice, Windham Hill Artists. And of course, these artists all signed to Windham Hill. Winter's Solstice. I think it's more of a winter-themed album. And this one here. And Mark sent this one to me in a MoFi sleeve. So Windham Hill's artists, Winter's Solstice. A couple more comps. I love comps. You know, if anybody ever wants to VCL to me anything, you would make my day with compilations, compilations of obscure music. I love them. And last but not least, the last thing I picked up from Mark Kopernicki, a Neil Young and Crazy Horse album I actually didn't have in my collection. I'm a big Neil Young and Crazy Horse fan. Everybody knows that. Huge. I had the pleasure of partying with Neil Young back in the 70s. That's a whole other story. I've told the story many times on streams, but yes, I went to Neil Young's farm and partied with him way back in the day. But that's a whole other story. But yeah, I'm a big Neil Young and Crazy Horse fan. I'm not a big Neil Young solo fan, other than a couple of his solo works, but I love Crazy Horse stuff. And this is one I just didn't have in my collection, and it's Neil Young Crazy Horse Zuma with the classic Cortez the Killer on this album. So happy to pick up a copy of this from Mark Kopernicki, of course, on Reprise Records. And I'm not sure the era of this particular Reprise label. I only know the brown Reprise label. I think this is the first time I've gotten this particular Reprise label in my collection. So very cool. Thank you, Mark, for all of those wonderful records. And that's everything I got at the Records Auctions and Discogs. The last thing I'm going to do is a little bit of promotional work for Mark Kopernicki, otherwise known as Projekt Gemineye. And of course, I'm a big supporter of Projekt Gemineye, which is a Canadian independent metal act. I've talked about him before. I've had him on my streams before. He used to co-host my streams with me last year. I always will promote his work because he is such an underrated artist that deserves to be a lot bigger than he is. He deserves to blow up. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he should be up there with all the other great, progressive metal artists. Everybody from, like Dream Theater or hell, Genesis. Or he deserves to be bigger than he is. He really does. And I always wish him the greatest success. And I'm always happy to promote his new material when he releases it. And of course, he's been doing a trilogy of albums the last couple of years with various guest artists on it, like David Donnelly, Billy Sherwood of Yes fame, and of course Joe Bailey, who's now signed to Projekt Gemineye's Riffical Records label. So Mark has been working on a trilogy, a science fiction trilogy. It's kind of a 2112 done big time. If I were to compare it to anything, I would look at Rush's 2112. It's kind of that kind of deal. Mark has been doing a 3-record book, and it's called In the Year 3073. It tells a story. You're going to have to listen to it to hear the story. It's been a wonderful trilogy of albums that he's produced. And of course, he just released the third part. Here's a copy of Book 1. This is Book 1 on vinyl, and this is, thank you very much. Mark gave me this test pressing of Book 1. I also have the official yellow vinyl pressing of it as well, because I always buy the albums from Mark to support him and help him. But this particular pressing he gave me, and I'm very grateful for that. This is Book 1. That came out a couple of years ago. Then Book 2 came out last year. Book 2 came out, or the previous year, last year. Well, last spring, Book 2 came out on vinyl. This is Book 2, and this was released on a beautiful colored vinyl. I believe this was this a teal? A teal? Yeah, it was like a teal vinyl. Did I just put my fingers on that? Oh my God. But this is Book 2. Book 2 of the project. And as you can see, Mark really puts a lot of work into these things with beautiful books. He always includes digital downloads, posters. Posters come with them. He really does a fantastic job of his work. Really fantastic job. So that was Book 2. And now, finally, these have just come in for the people that don't know. Book 3, he had dropped digitally a while ago, and now the CDs have been released. And Mark brought me, thank you very much, Mark, for this. Mark brought me I guess you could say a review copy of Book 3, which is right now out on CD. You can pick it up. Go to Mark on Bandcamp. Go to Projekt Gemineye on Bandcamp. You can order a copy on CD. Support independent artists. Support Mark. This is book 3. This is the finale. I haven't had a chance to spin it yet, Mark. I will in the future be doing a review of book 3. I'll probably do a review when the vinyl comes out. I know the vinyl won't be till later this year. That's when I'll probably do a review, when I have the vinyl to show you people. But right now, book 3 is out on CD. Everybody support your local independent artists, support Canadian independent artists, support independent artists everywhere in the world, and support Mark Kopernicki and Projekt Gemineye. And the final chapter in the year 30 to 73 saga is out and available on CD. Everybody go support Mark, buy a copy. They're not expensive, and you will not be sorry. Fantastic, fantastic music. I highly recommend Mark, and I'm looking forward to spinning this very, very soon. And that's it. That's all I got for you this week, guys. I will see you guys next week in another video. Hopefully I'll have something a little more interesting. I hope today's video was interesting anyhow. But I do have some things in my head that I'm planning. The wheels are turning. Some themes for videos coming very, very soon. So I'll see you guys next week. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Thumbs up always make people feel good. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe to my channel and turn that notification bell on, ding, 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 so you don't miss any of my videos. And comments welcome down below. I always reply to every single comment. And last but not least, if you're not following me on my Instagram is at AGK_lifetime of vinyl, where I post my spin of the day every day, among other things. And for all you people that want to check out my photography work, now that I'm full-time back into photography as well, you can sample my boudoir, lingerie, fashion, nude photography on my Instagram, AGK Productions on Instagram. So check it out. That's it. That's all. I'll see you guys in my next video. And as I always say, rock and roll!